So let's talk about what an autoimmune disease is. Let's define that and describe some of the symptoms that people may experience with that.
Yeah, so an autoimmune disease is like the immune system is part of our body that's supposed to protect us, right? It's supposed to be able to recognize pathogens or foreign invaders, so it fights it off and it keeps us from getting sick or harming us. And the immune system can then start to attack our own self tissue. So our cells, our different tissues, our organs, and that's called an autoimmune process when our immune system attacks ourself. So we know that that's not normal, right? We know that our immune system shouldn't be just like destroying our joints, like if we have rheumatoid arthritis, or destroying our thyroid gland if we have Hashimoto's. So something has to trigger it to do that. So what we look at with people that have autoimmune diseases, we ask the question, why? Why is the immune system doing that? Is there, stress? Are there toxins? Are there microbiome imbalances? We found that there's 9 key components that pretty much every person with autoimmunity has problems in these different aspects of their health. And many of these things we can fix through, diet, lifestyle modifications.
What are those 9 primary drivers?
So we have, of course, leaky gut is a huge part of that, right? When we don't have a good, healthy gut barrier, it allows for our immune system to get exposure to things that we're getting exposed to from our outside world, from our diet. So food sensitivities come into play with leaky gut as well. We start reacting to the foods that we're eating, having microbiome imbalances in our gut, having not a good diversity of the species that are living there. That impacts our immune system. So about 80% of our immune system lives in our gut lining, right? So it's really a key component about everything. Then we get, toxic chemical exposure just from our daily lives. We don't even have to be trying to, right? It's everywhere. We have a lot of adrenal problems, a lot of adrenal fatigue issues, cortisol issues. Cortisol is the stress hormone, right? So many people are dealing with chronic stress on a regular basis, hormonal imbalances, blood sugar problems, just mental, emotional things too. When we talk about stress, a lot of it could be also just traumas and things like that. So the things that we encounter on a regular basis really impact our immune system and could be in a negative way like that.
Yeah, it's diverse, and it's not just a simple solution. We've got to really work on our whole lifestyle. But one of the key factors that you talked about there was leaky gut. Can you describe more about that? How does somebody develop leaky gut, and what is that?
Yeah, so you can picture the gut lining like a wall, right? All of the cells, and really there's only one cell layer thick of our gut lining, which is really important to understand because it's very fragile, right? So all of these cells have these tight junctions between each other, and it forms a physical barrier. So things that are going through our gut, like if our undigested food or bacteria, these large particles that normally shouldn't get through, are supposed to be kept out from getting into our bloodstream, right? And that is a protective mechanism. So our body can not just let everything in, and our immune system can kind of test the waters and figure out if things are going to be good for us or bad for us. And so when we have too much permeability between these cells, because normally we have some degree of little things being able to get through, that's absorption of nutrients, right? Like when foods are completely broken down, they're small enough components that they can get through those tight barriers, and we absorb the nutrients that way. But when we have too much permeability, we have too much space between those cells, or the cells are not healthy enough, that barrier is breached. And that's where then our immune system can start to react to more things, that it's getting exposed to more things. So it's going more on high alert, right? It's trying to protect us. So it's starting to overreact, and it can start to react to things that are not actually harmful, like the food that we're eating, or, pollen, or things that are really not necessarily going to harm us.
Yeah, for sure. And food sensitivities play a big role with that as well. What are some of the most common food sensitivities that you're seeing with your patients?
Yeah, I think the most common things are going to be grains for sure. Grains have just been so changed and hybridized that the food in this world, in this country specifically, has been so modified that our body hasn't evolved fast enough to recognize it as real food. It thinks it's a foreign invader, and it's harder to digest too. That's part of the hybridization process, is it makes it harder to break down. So we're going to have more of a reaction to it typically. Dairy is also a common reaction I see. Sugar for a number of different reasons. And then there's the other modified foods, GMO corn and soy and canola, and things that are just in so much abundance in our diet that we get too much exposure to them, and they create a lot of inflammation and stress in the body and cause the immune reactions. Could be other things like nightshades, lectins, there's a number of different things. Everybody's different. And that's what's so fascinating too. When we look at people through the functional medicine lens, is like everybody's body has been has had a different background, environment, exposure. So we're going to be reacting to different things. And that's why also autoimmune conditions can show up with different symptoms with people. So some of the most common are going to be related to inflammation, like fatigue and brain fog, and pain. Like those are by far the most common symptoms that we see across the board with any and all autoimmune processes.
Yeah. And how are you helping people identify what their food sensitivities are? Are you using lab testing, muscle testing? Are you having them keep like a journal and see how they respond to foods? There's a lot of different methods that people use. What do you like?
Yeah, great question. I usually start with recommending just the simplest form is the elimination diet, right? It's really kind of a gold standard to start with. You take out the foods that the person is most likely reacting to. So like the grains and dairy and maybe nightshades and sugar, like the common things. And you keep them out for an average of 21 days or at least 21 days, right? Because that's actually how long that immune reaction is staying active for. It's the half-life of that reaction. So you can't just cut it out for a couple of days and expect to feel better. Just like, if you're having a reaction to multiple different foods, you can't just cut out one thing and then expect, that you're going to get better or notice a huge difference from that one thing. So you do the elimination process, you keep those out at least 21 days, and then you reintroduce one thing at a time and you kind of test the waters. You try it, you wait a couple days, you see if there's any change. So food journals, super helpful for people to recognize if symptoms come back or if things get worse. And it's really kind of a trial and error. And I find that that's a good starting place for people.
Yeah, it doesn't cost you anything because a lot of food sensitivities food sensitivity testing can be expensive, especially the really good tests are going to cost you, $500, $600. So that is a good first run, the elimination diet. Now, if somebody's plateauing on that, what's the next step that you look at?
Then that's what we'll do maybe some like food sensitivity testing. And then there's of course, different types of tests. So we there's a lab that will run the foods cooked and raw in different forms. Look for the different types.
Is that the Cyrex that you're looking at there?
Yeah. Yep. And then they test like the IgA and the IgG. So the different, different types of sensitivity reactions. And again, sensitivities are different than allergies. Allergies, most people already know that they have a problem with something and it's a very immediate, severe reaction. These sensitivities are a delayed response. So sometimes it is really challenging, especially when we get people coming in and they're not very in tune with their body in the first place. They're not really their symptoms are kind of normal for them and they don't really see too much of a difference. So we usually will do like a Cyrex testing from that point if we need to get more information. But we usually work on the gut first too, kind of help heal the gut lining, because a lot of times these intolerances or sensitivities, we can heal them through fixing the gut.
What are some of your top strategies for fixing the gut? What do you like to do?
So first, eliminate the things that are creating a lot of the inflammation. Right. Also address stress. I mean, cortisol, we know the stress hormone can cause leaky gut. So helping people understand and identify where the stressors are coming from in their life, because a lot of times it's things that we can control. Maybe it's not always just, work and commutes and relationships and things like that, the mental, emotional stressors that people recognize and deal with. Maybe it is a blood sugar problem, or maybe it is a microbiome imbalance, or maybe it's a low thyroid or nutrient deficiency, and we can help kind of fill in the gaps and help with those areas to decrease the stress on the body, to decrease the inflammation and allow the body to just kind of work a little bit better. Also, vagal tone has a huge component with like healing leaky gut. We know the vagus nerve controls gut peristalsis and gut healing and digestive enzyme production and all of those important factors. And the vagus nerve not only communicates from the brain to the gut, but also the gut to the brain, right? We know it's both ways. And so helping people identify how to get into like a parasympathetic state with their vagus nerve and using heart rate variability techniques and things like that, really helpful. And then supplements are always like a good tool. I like to use them to supplement all these other areas, right? Like working on diet and lifestyle, we use like L-glutamine and marshmallow root and licorice and things like that help with the gut lining. I think one of the most important things is short chain fatty acids, which actually come from the good bacteria in our gut helping us digest things like fiber. They produce these things called short chain fatty acids that help heal the gut lining too. Yeah. So that's super important. And we can supplement with that while the person's in a more of an acute state. And then we want to help, with the diet, optimizing them, being able to make that on their own. So we can work on dietary approaches and lifestyle approaches to help support the gut, as well as in supplementing with different nutrients.